Article for next time. The social structure in anime, that article, these are notes. Just read this. This is optional. The real reason why I want to do that is the language in this article is kind of strange. It was written in the 30s. It was written by Robert Burton, although he's a very good sociologist. He uses some really strange language in it. It was written for sociologists, though. But I think it's more intelligible and more productive if you read it in this form, which is more of the notes. It also connects it to Durkheim as well. Also, this article here, which is on the American murder rate and why it's so high in the United States. So we'll continue our discussion about murder in general, forms of severe criminal deviance, which murder is usually put at the top of the list, although sexual abuses are pretty close up there too. You've seen the way people have been acting towards this Jerry Sandusky case. This isn't some little thing. If you're a serial rapist or a serial child molester, people look at you like you're about as bad as a serial killer. Okay? The difference is your victims are alive and get to experience the horror of what you did to them repeatedly. Whereas when you murder somebody, it's only their family who lives with the horror. Okay? I'm not sure what happens to murder victims haven't died. So anyway, but again. So we're going to keep on this this train of thought when we look at murder. And with this article, you're going to see what the author tries to do is look at, are there any particular American characteristics that caused the murder rate to be so high in the United States? Or is it really that much higher? Our murder rate, if you look at the figures, is more comparable to countries like Colombia, which has a serious problem with drug violence, than it is to countries like Belgium or Germany or France, which is virtually, according to the article, there's approximately the national rate in the United States at the time they wrote the article, I want to say it was around 2002, was 5 murders per 100,000 people. A country like Germany has 1 murders per 100,000 people. So our rate is 4 to 5 times the rate of Germany's. Part of it has to do with the fact that the ease of handguns in the United States, but that's not the only issue. So they try to explore that, and I don't even remember if he even talks about handguns as being one of the issues. But having said that, to give an alternative view, the murder rate in the United States was still that high even before they were handguns, or proliferation of handguns. So it still begs the question: is there something with the culture of the United States that may be exacerbating the murder rate? All right. So make sure you read that for Wednesday. And then on next Monday, you need to start with the Hitler book, so make sure you bring that. Okay. A few quick notes here. One, I don't think this hopefully should be a problem, but I'm going to get new attendance sheets with your first name and your last initial on it, and with a little box besides that. I want you to use your signature on that. I want to prevent people, first of all, it's going to be easier for me to take attendance that way. And second as well, I don't want a situation where people are signing other people's names because they think you can print it and get away with it. Okay, so even for today, you want to print your name and then put your signature next to it. Because I've had a few issues with that in the past. Hopefully that won't be an issue, but I just wanted to remind everybody, since I did not put that specifically on the syllabus, but that's a form of academic dishonesty, so it's technically on there. All right. Anybody have any questions on the article itself? Any comments, questions? Yes. Tell me your name.
Alex.
Go ahead.
So for the article we're supposed to read for Wednesday,
right?
Do we need to know anything specific or just read it and just?
Should be okay. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a pretty well-written piece. Okay. As far as though, if you were planning on reading the Merton piece, which I don't think you probably don't have. Like I said, this is optional. So if you're really into it, go ahead and do it. But make sure you read the notes are not optional. But make sure you read the notes. You'll see it here. But again, if you read that one, I would say just be aware that his language is a little weird, and I would focus on the specific examples that he's using to help understand what he's talking about. You may get it. I remember the first time I read this, I was like, man, it's like it reminds me of like how your brain has to adjust. If you ever went to a Shakespeare play, how your brain has to sort of adjust to the language, sort of like that. It's like, I remember sometimes sitting in the first, it doesn't take very long, 20 seconds of a Shakespeare play, if you're watching it on TV or if you're watching it live, it's like this is, your brain knows it's English, but it still can't understand it. It reminds me of if you've ever seen National Lampoon's European Vacation, where he's at the counter of the British hotel, and he has that little translator thing in his hand, and the guy's talking in English, and he's sitting there punching all these buttons, and his son turns around and goes, "Dad, it's talking in English." That's what it sort of sounds like in my head to read that article, so it's a little strange. So, but anyway, both these are up under content, so make sure you go, if you go up here, you see the little thing that says content. All right, any more questions? Okay, today what we're going to do, I have these notes on deviance and social institutions. So we're going to work off of that to get down some general concepts of deviance, different classifications of deviance, how institutions view deviance, some of the differing theories and perspectives related to deviance. Then we're going to move on to theories of criminal deviance with particular focus on murder. All right, this is also up on Blackboard. I think I asked you to read this and look over it. My clicker thing would work on Word. Anyway, I need to get a remote mouse. Anyway, in general, the idea of deviance, the general definition of deviance is any violation of laws, rules, value systems, norms, standards, customs, and or social expectations placed upon us by society. So anything out of the ordinary or strange can be considered to be deviant, and that can mean anything from a hairstyle or the way you dress to the way you talk to something more serious like you do committing an act against somebody, maybe telling someone off, or just being rude, or further along, violating the law, which is a very serious issue usually. But, having said that, even though there's a sense of that most of the things that are illegal are illegal for a reason, there's still a lot of laws that people either argue against, don't agree with, want to change. Things like gay marriage or abortion laws, marijuana laws, age restrictions on drinking, all kinds of stuff. Okay? And even with regards to certain types of laws called regulations, businesses in general, and particularly conservative people, don't like these things. You know, for example, if you want to build a factory, you have to get an environmental impact statement. It takes time and money. You don't need to do that in a lot of other places in the world, and so unfortunately factories start moving places. So, again, sometimes deviance is a violation of structured, stated, formal rules. Other time it is, hey, why didn't you shake Bill's hand? Or why did you get a purple mohawk? It's not illegal to have a purple mohawk. Or things like tattoos, which, believe it or not, in some states are still illegal, or tattoo parlors are illegal. Okay? Some people it's not a big deal. To other people it's a signal that you have just taken yourself out of society. And I'll tell you right now, when you put a tattoo on your face, you're definitely, I think we mentioned this last week, you put a tattoo on your face and it's pretty much over. I mean, I often see, I kind of feel sorry for these people, but not really, because I think they knew they were getting into. Besides, they got a lot more money than me anyway. But like these one-hit wonder bands, and like the lead singer's got this tattoo on his neck, and I'm sitting there going, I guess you could work at a music store at some point. You know, I mean, sometimes these one-hit wonders, especially these idiots that are one-hit wonders and they blow all their money. You know, I mean, you take MC Hammer. That was not a one-hit wonder. Although it was pretty damn close. He blew all his money, blew every bit of it, took his house and everything. Okay? Did pray for some more money. Anyway, that was one of the songs. Can't touch this. Because he wasn't talking to the repo man, was he? Anyway. Don't take my house. But anyway, but in general, there's this idea of a continuum in ideas about deviance that challenges the definition above, meaning that there are some that say that what is deviance is relative to many different situations. That is the argument made by postmodernists and conflict theorists, also what we call social constructionists. While absolutist natural law theorists and functionalists believe that what is wrong is what the society says it is, and that those things are considered to be deviant for good reason. They damage society and threaten its cohesion and progress. That's the argument they make about marijuana. That, hey, it's damaging to people, it's addictive, it leads to worse stuff. And I would say that in wine, cigarettes, alcohol, and sugary foods with it. I mean, if we really went on this, if the idea was that Anything that harms society should be outlawed. People wouldn't be allowed to snowboard. They wouldn't be allowed to get in their car. They wouldn't be allowed to go to work. They wouldn't be allowed to go to the store unless they steal something. Okay? You wouldn't be able to breathe. You're messing up the air. I mean, the ridiculousness is of the statement. And I'll tell you right now, the cookie aisle at the supermarket, say goodbye to that. Okay? I always find it funny that they say, we outlaw this because it's a dangerous product. Why are Oreos still on the shelf?
What?
Potato chips. One of Lay's logos, you can't eat just one. Okay? My point is that when things that are damaged, if the idea of deviance is that there's an absolute ideal that, look, cigarettes are, if you live in a society, or like, let's take a Muslim society, alcohol is illegal because it causes problems. But you have a lot of other things in society that cause problems. If you're Saudi Arabia, your government is the problem, frankly. Okay, that's probably most society. Anyway, the government usually doesn't help in the minds of many people. But that does not explain frivolous laws or moral laws against adultery. It seem to many be about personal choices, not social harm. There used to be laws that said that if you committed an act of homosexuality, you were a felon. Frankly, it wasn't. There were laws that went even beyond that. If you engaged in oral sex, you were a criminal. Period. There's still some states that have that on the wall. There were states that shut down stores on Sunday called blue laws. If you opened, you were fined or worse. Okay? So a lot of things that used to be, again, I'll say with tattoos, a lot of states used to outlaw. Or how about abortion? It used to be illegal. Now it's not. Right? And I love the fact that people can, with a straight face, say that, well, marriage doesn't damage society, but gay marriage does. And forgive me for a joke, but I've heard heterosexual people who support gay marriage go, yeah, we should let everybody feel the misery of marriage. Shouldn't just be for heterosexuals, right? Not only do you get married, we can have some gay divorces too. Right? I mean, it's sort of a joke, but it's sort of the idea that why is it that marriage in one context is good and in the other context is bad? And you'll hear detractors of gay marriage say this stuff. Well, we can't have gay people getting married, and then they're going to go adopt the kids, and they're going to teach their kids how to be gay. I don't think that's the way it works. I could be wrong, but most evidence suggests that there's at least some genetic components to being gay. And I'll tell you right now, you ask gay people, there's no doubt in their mind. They'll tell you straight out, at least most of them will tell you, I was born this way. I've never liked the opposite sex. But we have these laws that say it's wrong, wrong, right? Get this. The age of consent in New York in 1890, you know, I think I mentioned this in this class. Anybody know what it was to be? 10. In parts of the South, it's still legal to marry if you're 14 if you have parents' permission. Other places, it's not. So, one of the things we're hitting at is culture seems to play a big role in what is legal from 1950 to now, but also between what individuals think is right and wrong, or communities. Value systems shape different views. You know, you grew up in a Marxist household, you don't think anything of criticizing capitalism. It's just what you do. It's not a big deal. You go to school and start. Let's take somebody who grew up in a communist household. They're unaware until the age of 5 or 6, probably, of what they're saying. Maybe they get some ideas that their parents are under surveillance by the government or whatever. Let's go back to like 1960 or something. Okay. They play with other kids of communist families, and so they talk about Marx and stuff. Kid turns 5 and goes to school. Now he starts telling the teacher that his parents are communists. Now what happens? In 1950, 1960s, right? You see how, like, under certain circumstances, like for example, if 2 people are in a room and they've agreed to do cocaine, is anything deviant really going on? What if they're on the sidewalk doing it? I mean, technically they are doing something wrong, right? But the difference is nobody in that room is willing to say anything, right? Just like if 2 people got in a room and, like, I'll tell you right now, when escorts get caught, they always say this, oh, he paid for the time. Everything else that happens is just between two consenting adults. And technically, it's hard for the court to prove that, hey, I gave you this money for sex, unless they have something said. Okay? But within that context, particularly privacy, right? Like, for example, most states allow for this. If your parents give you wine or beer at dinner, or even have a party, the police really can't do anything about that. Unless the kid calls the police on you and says, hey, my dad's forcing me to drink wine. And if you actually look at it, that's from culture. Are there a lot of Mediterranean people in this country? People like, in Mediterranean, the culture is to drink wine during meals, right? I'm not from a Mediterranean culture, but I remember drinking wine at Thanksgiving when I was 7. Okay? Who here were, it was pretty common for your parents or even for you to get wine. See? It's not a big deal. I bet when you told some people that who's not used to that, they were like, what? I got to come over to your house. Right? Do they give, I think I asked this before, I think I got the answer. Catholic Church, do they give kids wine or grape juice?
Wine.
Socialized rurally. So the issue for that is, though, unfortunately, a lot of people are genetically predisposed towards alcoholism, and all they need is, you ask psychologists or a psychiatrist, all they need is one taste to trigger the thing to occur. Now, hopefully, when they're 5 and 6, it ain't going to trigger. But I'll tell you what, man, what do they do if someone's a recovering alcoholic? You'd want people in church that would have these types of issues, right? Maybe it's grape juice then. I don't know. That's kind of odd. Anyway. They do that at Lutheran churches too, not alcoholics, wine, but the communion thing. And a lot of other, like when I went to Baptist churches, that was like once a year. Catholic churches every Sunday, isn't it? Take communion every Sunday, right? Some people take it three times a week. Okay. I remember the first time I saw somebody with the ash on their forehead, I was like, I almost stopped and said, hey, you got something on your forehead. Until I saw 3 or 4 other people, and I was like, oh. I remember because the night before was, what's the night before Ash Wednesday? Everybody, especially the Catholics, you should know this. What's it called?
Fat Tuesday?
No, it's Fat Tuesday.
It's like
Fat Tuesday. Yeah. Where, and the idea is to act like a complete fool and get drunk and do whatever, break every commandment known to man, and then the next day confess your sins, because it's the beginning of Lent. Right? I always love that. That's why church is on Sunday morning, so you get Friday and Saturday night to do whatever debauchery, and you go in and you confess afterwards. So, forgive me, Father, I went to the discotheque, and you know what happened, man. I got some film. You're like, Father, you better get a pad and pencil. It's going to be long. Anyway. So here's the deviant spectrum of theorists. So on this side, we have this idea of relativists. And they believe that what is deviant depends more on who is in power or who is in the situation, right? Like, in your home, you know, for the most part, Mom and Dad make up the rules. And if they want to let you drink wine, that's fine. And I'll tell you right now, I remember one time, when you're a kid, you don't notice things until sometimes you go over to your friend's house. And I remember my friend Jeff telling me that his parents used to smoke pot right in front of me. And what's so funny is that most theorists would say, well, if someone smokes pot in front of their kids are doomed to do what? He never in his life did it. But what's so funny was, he did other things. Probably shouldn't say that. He did LSD and stuff. He just didn't like smoke. It wasn't the drug. He liked drugs. He just didn't like smoke. I was like, it's got splitting hairs, isn't it? But I was like, here's some brownies, you know. So. But he didn't think it was. He didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's on the camera. I'll cut that out. He didn't think it was that big of a deal, and he was actually shocked that my parents were so strict and stuff. But he'd tell me stories from his dad. His dad would get high and go cook a hot dog and leave it on the stove and burn and smoke everywhere. I was like, man, it's like your dad's gonna burn the house down. And his dad was like an old hippie and he had a shoebox full of concerts that he went to, including stuff like the Doors and all this other stuff. But for Jeff, that wasn't that big of a deal, and because music was around him all his life, he eventually ended up trying to become a musician, which he gave up, although he still plays. So anyway. And then the moderate view is, let's go to the absolutist view, and then we'll talk about the moderate view. The absolutist view is that nation states and communities, and cultures make laws based on the law of nature, and that acts that are wrong are banned for a good reason. This is many times conservative, moralist, natural law. This is one of the reasons why religious conservatives are so adamant about abortion. That they feel that people who go and perform abortions or have abortions are murdering children. And there's no way to define it any other way, and it doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks after conception or 8 months after conception, that there's no way you can define that as right. Relativists, on the other hand, say, hey, what if the mother's going to die? What if it's a rape or incest? And some people even say, look, who are you to decide what a woman does with their body? Just like, who are you to decide what people put in their mouth or in their brain or whatever? Right? Like, for example, if you're on a desert island performing abortions and selling cocaine, are you violating any laws? If you're on the middle of the desert island, yeah, because there's no laws. You see but the absolutists would say, oh, you're violating laws. You're violating God's laws. This is very much based on sort of natural laws, sort of what that God lays down things that you don't do, like murdering or raping people. Okay, and a lot of these things people agree with. But here's an issue. People say, look, killing is wrong. What if somebody's trying to kill you? What if somebody's trying to blow up your country? Right? Telling me you go to an amusement park and somebody attacks your 4-year-old kid with a knife and it's going to stand there? Your killing is wrong. Hey buddy, put that knife down. Killing is wrong. While your kid's screaming, help me daddy, help me daddy. Killing is wrong, son. He'll get the message. And he'll stop. No. Right? And if killing is wrong, how come the government does it? Doesn't the government put people to death? And again, I'm not trying to get into a debate about the death penalty itself, but I'm trying to make the point is that even things that we take as going, there's no way that can be legal. I would say probably one of the only things it's very difficult to justify or try to rationalize, if not at all impossible, are sex crime. How can you tell me that, oh, I better rape that person because they're going to rape me if I don't rape them first? We got to rape the Nazis before they take over our country. No one says that. And nobody goes, I'm glad you molested that child. You really solved a problem there. I mean, nobody, those types of things are not said. Whereas things like punching people, there's certain situations where it's quite okay to punch people. It's almost demanded that you punch people. Okay? Or being rude to people when they're being mean to you. If you've ever had a job at a fast food restaurant, you know this one real well, don't you? Especially at the front of the counter. Look, sir, it's just hamburgers. Calm down. I almost feel, when stuff like that used to happen to me at McDonald's, I would almost feel sorry for the people. I would sit there and go, man, you're so powerless in your life that you have to bully me around? You have to bully some poor wage employee at McDonald's to make yourself feel big? You must really be low at your job. Maybe your wife left you, buddy. It's not my problem. I would always think, man, this guy needs a hug. Anyway, they don't want to hug you. Don't try that. There's a thing. People think, oh, hell, hey, there's nothing wrong with hugging people. Or go ahead, go and do the Borat and hug people out in public. Right? If we have time, I'll bring in Borat's movie and I'll show you a few scenes. Remember when he was chasing people around? He's like, oh, my name is Borat. And he tries to kiss people, and that one guy goes, don't you, and he was cussing. He was like, don't you blang, blang, blang my face and stuff. Some other guy ran. That's a great movie to look at the lines of deviance. Remember he went to the feminist thing and he started making fun of the women and he went to the snake handlers and he was making fun of them. Then he went to Texas at that rodeo and said, we support your war of terror. And he sang some stupid song. And at one point, at the beginning of the movie, when he was in the subway, he had a chicken in the suitcase and he opened it and the chicken went everywhere and stuff. So. But one of the guys, remember the guy who ran away across the street? He's like, oh my God, you went. That guy sued Borat because he said he made his home and work life miserable because everybody was making fun of him. And I would say, why is that Borat's fault that you ran away? It doesn't make any sense to me. So the guys in the, this is up online, so you guys don't have to write down every little thing here. Remember the guys in the trailer park that were talking about racism and they showed him the Pamela Anderson? Those guys sued him too. Because they said they made him, They said that Borat made them look like racists. I was like, man, I think you did just well by yourself. I think you just put the camera in front of your face because you didn't understand what the deal was. It's like trying to accuse the comedy club of making Michael Richards look like a racist. I mean, come on. And alcohol didn't make Mel Gibson an anti-Semitic. So anyway, moderate view sees merit in both these. That look, there are some things that, again, like the rape and the sexual laws. Some things that should be deviant because they harm society. You know, I doubt you'd find many people who suggest that heroin should be legal. Right? Although maybe in Smithtown. Anyway, if you read the papers, you'd understand that comment. They had a serious problem with heroin in Smithtown. You know, they were busting people. I remember I was reading a newspaper outside the CVS of a store. Outside the CVS, they had arrested somebody over by it's like a Presbyterian church on the corner. If you've ever seen it, a little diner. Anyway, so again, but you won't hear people say that. But here's how this goes though. Heroin's not legal, but OxyContin is, which is somewhat similar, isn't it? In effect, and it's also chemical signature. That's why a lot of people are getting addicted to this. So, anyway, but they feel that each generation has the right to decide the elements of what should and shouldn't be allowed, like gambling, marijuana, prostitution. Moderate, postmodernists, and pluralists take this position. They feel that, hey, you know what? If a society decides that, like Las Vegas, that gambling should be legal and prostitution should be legal, or take a place like Amsterdam, where almost everything under the sun is basically legal, they should be able to do it. Absolutists would say, hey, you do that, and everybody's going to want to come to your place, or they're going to come and act like a fool, and you're going to draw in crime and all kinds of other negative characteristics, characters, social problems by acting like this. Other people say, huh? People get used to things after a while, and gambling just becomes one of these things. Like, if, for example, I talk to a lot of Europeans, and they often say this about Americans. They say because Americans view alcohol as like this restricted thing that they cannot have, like a taboo item, and then the drinking age in Europe is much lower. I think in some countries it's 16 years old. In Mexico it's basically 14. Although there's some bars that they don't check ID. The only ID they check to see if you're a government official, and then they kick you out. Otherwise they have no interest. And some age law. That goes for cigarettes too. But Europeans often say, well, Americans are out of control with drinking, and they binge drink a lot more because it's seen as a taboo object and they don't have any experience with it. Whereas Europeans drink from the time they're 7 and 8 sometimes. And if you're from Spain or Portugal or Italy or Greece or even Germany and parts of France, alcohol's everywhere. You know? And they don't have issues like, or at least the impression I get is, you know, prom night's like the most deadly night of the year stuff. That's not the case. Although they probably don't have prom. Well, maybe they have proms. That tradition had to come from somewhere. Maybe if Americans made it up. But again, Europeans always talk about, look, it has to do with getting used to something. And when people are used to controlling their alcohol, they have a better view of it, and therefore they don't have these control issues the way, you know, fraternities do or something like that, where parties get out of control, where people get knocked off balconies, and people die of alcohol poisoning, and on and on and on. And the Dutch say the same thing about marijuana smoking, and if you actually look at some of the data, more people under the age of 18 in this country, percentage-wise, have tried marijuana than in the Netherlands, where it's somewhat, it's way more available, and it's not completely legalized in the sense of, but it is decriminalized, and you can buy it in coffee shops. Different types of deviance. Now this breaks down into criminal and non-criminal deviance. In the criminal deviance side is felonies. These are considered serious violations of the law that carry over a year in jail and sometimes a death penalty, usually involving severe harm to a victim or society as a whole. Like, for example, Bernie Madoff got almost 150 years in jail. And many times what the state is trying to do with certain punishments, particularly the death penalty, which they give to terrorists and spies, is to send a message to anybody out there as a deterrent that if you do this behavior, this is what you're going to get. And the society loves, at least the American society loves, and I would say most societies have a tendency to do this. They want to, through movies and TV shows, to make jail look so horrendous that you wouldn't dare want to be there. Shows like Oz, right? And they want myths like that if you go to jail and you're a man, you're going to get anally raped. Seriously. That's what's going to happen to you. You're going to get beat up constantly, and people are going to treat you like dirt, and all this crap. All right? They want people to believe that because they don't want people to go. And they actually, anybody you know the TV show Boondocks with Aaron McGruder, he actually made fun of this. When one of the characters was afraid to go to jail because he was afraid of getting anally raped, so he spends his whole life trying to be a lawyer and all this other stuff, and then eventually he gets arrested for something he didn't do. And it's just hilarious to hear him say all this stuff. So it's playing on these fears, and they want people to believe that kind of stuff. So anyway. Misdemeanors, on the other hand, are lesser crimes like shoplifting below $500 or simple assault or vandalism, although if you damage property, if it gets above a certain level, it can be a felony. Grand theft usually means either over $500 or $1,000. I've seen it as low as $200. If you steal something that's over $200, you'll get grand theft, and that's many times a year. But even with felonies, they're supposed to require, to some extent, a certain level of jail time. But if you were to, if you stole a Blu-ray DVD player from Walmart and they caught you, I doubt you'd do 2 days in jail. Mostly, if that was your first offense, because most of the time they want to preserve prison space for serious criminals, like Bernie Madoff and other people like that, or the Joel Rifkin, the serial killer, or Son of Sam, or the guy who shot Robert Kennedy, that kind of stuff. That's the people that throw in jail. Although some of those people get out sometimes. C violations, which are parking. Most of you have had this happen. Probably on this campus, right? I've gotten a parking ticket. Speeding tickets, I haven't got one of those. Thank God. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to say that in front of the camera. Anyway, let's just put it this way. If you do the speed limit on the Northern State Parkway, you're going to get run over. Except for by the old lady who goes, well, finally somebody driving license. Anyway, probably shouldn't make that joke. Anyway, but again, these are the most likely things that are going to happen to you. Even possession of marijuana. Does anybody know what the penalty is in the state of New York for possession of under 25 grams? I think it's either 100 or 50, something like that. Sometimes they don't even bother to just take your dope and leave. And I would say, yeah, put the camera on. Let me just put it this way. Use your imagination of what's happening when someone takes your stuff and goes, all right, I'm going to take this, and then I'm not going to give you a ticket. Don't tell nobody I took it either. Just go, just get out of here and don't do it again. Got any paper? Anyway. We got to go to the store, Bob, and get some cigars. And I'll tell you what, single-handedly marijuana has kept the cigar industry and zigzags. Who rolls their own cigarettes? Lenny Bruce even made fun of that. He said he imagined a Senate committee where they called the inventor of zigzags up and go, Mr. Zigzag, we know that your papers are being used to roll marijuana cigarettes. Lots of them. Don't lie. And say, how come that Zigzag cigarette rolling papers is still in business, and yet all the tobacco producing companies that make tobacco you put in rolling cigarettes is out of business? Right? I mean, think about it. I'll tell you what, in Alaska, I knew one person that would roll their own cigarettes. That's it. Out of however many people were in Fairbanks. How many people here roll their own cigarettes? How many people have papers? That's what I thought. Anyway. Or if you ever see somebody go in the store and go, can I buy a lighter? And you're like, you want some cigarettes now? You got a little glass tube? Maybe some baking soda? Anyway. See, some of you know what I just said. See the language of deviance? Like, if you know what chore boy is, you're in deep. You guys don't know what it is? See? It's a good sign. It's this little metal that they burn up and put in crack pipes. It's like copper colored. You'll see it at, here's what's funny. Almost every single 7-Eleven I've been in has it. And they got a little thing of baking soda too. I'm surprised they don't sell spoons. If you go to some gas stations, they sell these little plastic flowers in glass tubes. Have you ever seen this? Yeah, and they're usually sometimes either under the counter or behind the counter.
I actually just did it this weekend. And
right.
The guy, I'm like, if it's tobacco use,
yeah, right.
Really used for cocaine.
Yeah. And the cops know about all this stuff, and they can't really do much about it because people can say this nonsense. But in state legislators are trying to ban some things like this. At least it's not as bad as head shops. Like, if you've ever been to Utopia, that stuff is... I don't think anybody smokes tobacco out of a bong this big, with twists and turns all in it, man. I mean, it looks like a water slide at Six Flags or something like that. So, I mean, come on. Anyway, but even things like underage drinking, like, for example, what happens to you in the dorms if you get caught with alcohol? Absolutely nothing.
What? You have to go to some frequent class.
But most people will go to jail. They take you to jail that night. How about the Bush twins? Remember one of both the Bush twins got caught doing this. This is how silly the Bush twins are. They thought that they could be in Texas and order drinks with illegal IDs and nobody knew that they were the Bush twins. It'd be like the Kardashians trying to do that in California. Like, I know what I look like, Kim Kardashian. I'm like, look, nobody else looks like Kim Kardashian. Anyway. But again, criminal deviance is seen as very serious, and these laws are, although, think about the speeding laws sometimes, and like red light cameras and stuff, like there's certain laws that people just don't take seriously. And some people don't like recycling laws. But in general, these types of laws, especially involving injury to a victim, are taken very seriously and punished very seriously by society. But again, these laws are decided on by powerful institutions, even in a democratic state, federal and state governments. How much say does the public have, really? You get to decide what the penalty is for these crimes, or what it is. Like, for example, most people would suggest that there are certain things, again, marijuana, gambling, prostitution, that a lot of people engage in, that should be completely legal. How dare somebody make that decision for you to some extent? But do you get to vote on that? Do you get to vote on whether or not gambling is legal in Long Island? Or weren't they supposed to build a casino? Didn't the Shinnecock want to build a casino?
There is one. It's in the city.
Yeah, but they went out in the Hamptons. The Shinnecock Reservation is out in the Hamptons. It's out by the Pine Barrens.
Empire City Casino just opened one 3 months ago.
But in the Hamptons?
Yeah, in New York State.
No, I mean, but in Suffolk County. Are there any casinos in Suffolk County?
No, it's not.
And there won't be for a while, because nobody wants to put up with it. And the crazy thing is, the Shinnecock, that's supposed to be their own land. They're supposed to be their own rules. They don't have to take dictates from the federal government. That's their land, like their own country. And Suffolk County and the state of New York said, you are not going to build, and it was probably the people in Suffolk and the Hamptons who didn't want that there. You are not going to build a smarmy, slimy casino in the middle of our beautiful Hamptons and ruin it. Right where Bernie Madoff's house is in Montauk. Yeah. I always joke when I go down to the Hamptons, like, you can smell the cocaine in the air. A lot of them might get sold in the city, a lot of it gets consumed out there. Okay? It's like a mist in the air. Like today, there was like this weird mist in the air. So, anyway, let's hope that's not what it was. By the way, if you guys think that's a joke, they actually tested the air around the University of Rome. They said like 0.01% of it was like cocaine and heroin in the air itself. I look it up. But if anyone do, I'll find a study. I read that, I was like, what? Man, plenty of hash is in the air too. And now people are going to go to the University of Rome and like, I don't think that's the way it works. Number 2, non-criminal deviance. Violations of non-criminal ideas of what is proper and appropriate based on situational realities and expectations. Can anybody give an example of something that is deviant but it's not criminal?
You can say getting drunk is deviant.
Okay, so that's a good one. Are there places, though, where being drunk is not only not deviant, but it's kind of cool? Or is acceptable?
Campuses?
Huh?
Any college campus?
Yeah, for the most part, or a football game. Nobody gives a damn if you get drunk at a football game. That's the whole point, right? Yeah. You want to talk, what's tailgating?
Yeah.
Not only is it drinking, if you were a religious person, there'd be some gluttony going on there. And God knows what's going on in the back seat of the car. And probably some zigzags going to show up at some point, maybe the glass pipe. Who knows what the hell's going on in these parking lots, right? But one thing is certain. There's nothing wrong with being stinky drunk, especially, hopefully as long as you're not driving, at a football game. Even if you get loud and obnoxious. And I'll tell you right now, I went to a Yankees game, I guess it was like 3 years ago. It was a couple days, it was like the second game in the new stadium, so I guess it was at 09, something like that. Anyway, and we were in the bleachers, and there were kids around, and every cuss word known to man came out of people's mouths. They were Cleveland Indian fans they were playing the Indians. They were in the stadium, and in the stands, and they were getting into fights. There were two women who got into a fight. Someone threw a beer at Johnny Damon. I guess was he in left field? It's not right field. Anyway, it was crazy. But and the police were just sort of like just controlling the situation. Nobody said, "All right, that's it. All right, we're closing this place down. Get out, everybody. We're not going to have another baseball game in here again until you people control yourselves." And people said, "Well, why would they ever do that?" In Italy and other places like that. And especially recently in Argentina, they have made football teams play in front of empty stadiums because their crowds got out of control.
Yeah.
And for corruption scandals too, which they did in Italy. Which is weird. Can you imagine the Giants game where there's nobody in the crowd? But just like a Jets game. I'm kidding. I like both the team. See what you guys don't understand. I like the Jets and the Giants. I'm not going to get in the middle of some battle. Okay? I like anybody. I like the Jets because they play the Patriots twice a year and they have a chance. So I wish the Bills would beat the Patriots a little bit more. That's always fun. When you get beat by the Bills, although this year they weren't too bad, it's not a good thing. So. And how come everybody ignores the Bills as a New York team? So. Anyway, enough of that. So Jets fans don't get too sensitive. So, but again, it's okay to be drunk on your 21st birthday, all these kinds of stuff. Does anybody know there's sort of a general rule about a time during the day when you don't drink? Huh?
The morning.
You said the morning. Someone else said 5.
I would say before 11, because like restaurants
Noon?
and stuff. Yeah, I don't think restaurants don't serve alcohol during the week before 11, and then Sundays before noon.
Yeah, go to Cardiff, Wales. They start drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm pretty sure a lot of them haven't even been to bed. Or something with them red eyes with the egg in it.
Oh.
Medicine with the egg. You gotta get some protein in your pockets. I remember to them this wasn't a big deal, but in Cardiff, like when I was there for about 10 days. On Sunday mornings, there would be beer cans and beer bottles were like this, and they'd have those little bobcat things with the little lifts on them. And they would be out there shoveling up cans and bottles and slamming them into a dumpster. It was like trash everywhere. And especially they had these like little 24-hour Burger Kings. And Wales is mostly a walking town, not cars. And so there'd be trash everywhere down the street. The seagulls loved it. So, other than that. But that was normal to them. And I remember walking around the street going, man, this whole place needs an intervention. Okay. I don't know how you intervene in an entire country, but whatever. So again, and also things like being rude, arrogant, also behavior, certain aspects of people's personality. If you're a narcissist, most people don't want to be around you. If you're just rude or obnoxious, even things like this, being uptight. What's that mean? What's it mean if somebody's uptight? Usually, sometimes call these people type A personalities. What's that mean?
You're straight.
Right. So some of you, this is the way you look at your parents, right? They're too uptight, right? Sometimes you say somebody's got a stick up their butt. Something like that. Like you use these comments about something. What's that mean though, behavioral wise? How do they behave towards you? Or towards anybody?
Stick up their butt.
Alright, so there you go. So they come over, you go over to their house to watch a football game. How do they behave?
Use a coaster.
So this is like the odd couple? Right? They're concerned. Maybe it's even beyond that, right? They want you to eat over the coffee table. Don't put your foot there or this way. But it's also stuff like, man, did you hear that? Is there somebody outside? Did Bob say something about me last week? Because I heard him talking to somebody in the break room. That kind of crap. Like uptight people, when it's real severe, can be very paranoid and kind of like defensive. Everything is an attack on them. Right? Or, other people kind of like uptight people. You like uptight people at work because they get their work done, right? They're always the one telling you, oh, you got to hurry up. You want an uptight person to be your factory supervisor. Okay? Or your drill sergeant. Right? You don't want some hippie drill sergeant going, all right, let's run around a little bit. You'll be ready, don't worry. Okay? It doesn't work that way. But why is that so bad, somebody being uptight? What's so bad about it? Anything against the law? Greg?
It's basically their way or the highway. I mean, if you are in a group of people and you have one uptight person and you find a way to achieve a goal that's not their way, they're going to slow the group down because they don't want to do something that's not their way.
So part of what you're hinting at, and I think in the general level, is that, and this is not just for people who are narcissistic or uptight, but that they make other people unhappy with their personality and their behavior. And no matter what you say to them, many of them won't change their behavior. And so you don't want, eventually, you start to think, man, every time I'm around Bob, he starts in with something. And then you start to think, what? Eventually. What eventually starts to happen if you behave like this?
Find that person really obnoxious.
Alright, so fine. You find him really obnoxious. Then what?
No one wants to be around them.
Exactly. You start losing friends. Ain't nobody going to marry an uptight person except for another uptight person. Okay. I sort of make fun. Have you ever seen The Odd Couple? Have you ever seen this movie? That's sort of the idea here, right? Is that if you've never seen it, it's a Neil Simon play. It was done by Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon as a film in 1968, and it was these two guys who moved in together. One was an uptight, cleaning freak, obsessive compulsive, and he drove his wife crazy, so that's why he was living in the house. And the other one, Oscar, was a complete slob. And they thought, well, since I'm a slob and you're neat, it'll work out. We'll compliment him. But they drove each other crazy. One of the times, and I think I mentioned this before, Oscar comes into Felix and he says, "Don't leave little notes on my pillow. I hate it when you leave little notes on the pillow." And he goes, and he repeated a note and he said, "We're out of cereal, F you." He said, "It took me 3 hours to figure out that F you meant Felix Unger." Because guess what he thought it meant? Because Oscar is not, he's back to symbolic interactionism. Oscar's not somebody who writes little notes on people's pillows. Okay? Or obsesses about every little thing. They were playing poker and the uptight character was cleaning up everything on the table. And telling people, again, to put things on coasters and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay? So again, just as you can be thrown in jail for criminal deviance, what can happen to you when you violate things of non-criminal deviance? Besides losing your friends. What other things can happen? Society likes to threaten people with a lot of different things, painful things, to get people to behave. You don't like to wear a suit, but your boss says what?
You're going to.
That's right. Is it illegal not to wear a suit to work? But when it's against company rules, it's as good as illegal, isn't it? Like, you guys know this. The Yankees, if you remember the Yankees, what can't you have? A whole bunch of stuff. You can't have long hair, right? Didn't he tell Johnny Damon to cut his hair? Who was? Didn't somebody join the Yankees, or was it Manny and the Dodgers? Manny joined the Dodgers, and the rule in general, I guess because Torrey was managing it, was that you have to cut your hair. He wouldn't. They made an exception for it. Have they ever done that for anybody on the Yankees? See, even Reggie Jackson wasn't above the exception. He's Mr. October. Okay, even A-Rod, right? A-Rod's got other issues, like infidelity with Madonna. And I guess he doesn't like having the video camera show. What was it, Kate Hudson shoveling popcorn in his mouth? He got really upset about that. Anyway, but in many cases, what can be considered to be deviant, even non-criminally deviant, outside of an organization like Enron, inside of it can be completely normal. Embezzling and scandal. Let's talk about some of the elements, though, that change the aspects of what is deviant, what is not. Who is there? That's a big deal. And I think a couple quick examples, I think, will illustrate this point real quickly. How do you act differently around strangers than you do around people you've known for a long time? Like out in public, let's take a subway platform with a bunch of strangers around versus you being inside your house. How does that change what's acceptable? Or let's keep it the same spot. Subway platform. One, you're around a bunch of strangers you don't know anyone. Another one, you're around 5 or 6 of your friends. How does that change what's deviant and what's not? Or what's appropriate with them? Does it? So you're telling me on the subway platform you act just like you do if you were around 5 of your friends? Loud, boisterous. You just go up to people, hey, what's going on, man? You know, I got a shirt just like that. Do you do that on the subway? What kind of questions are you allowed to ask strangers? I think this is a better way to explore the issue. What kind of questions are appropriate to ask strangers on the subway platform? Or don't say none. Yes, tell me your name.
Stephanie.
Go ahead.
Actually, the only one is, what time is it?
That's probably one of them. Maybe the weather, or maybe what station this is. Like general questions of if I'm lost. And even then, is it always appropriate to ask anybody? Some people are like, whoa, it's like the Borat thing. Whoa, whoa, I don't know what time it is. I don't know nothing, man. I don't know what platform this is. Right? Because they're scared. How about if someone drops something? Is it appropriate to pick it up and give it to them?
No.
No? Serious?
Yep.
Why? What happened? You guys want to explain what happened? This is interesting.
Like, you're pushed on the crazy people in there. I mean, if someone drops
So someone thinks you're going, what if it's like
Stop.
a grocery bag?
you just call after the miss.
Maybe you tell them?
Tell
Maybe you tell them?
I'll tell them if you drop something, but I'm not
I'm
going
not
to
gonna
do it
touch
for you.
What if somebody's standing next to you and they smell? Can you say anything to them?
No, you walk away.
Isn't that terrible? That you have to sit there and endure that because social conventions don't allow you to... Jerry Seinfeld once said, we need to smell police, to sniff these people out, strip them down, and give them a shower. Remember he had that one... You ever seen the episode where the valet had the BO and it stayed in the car like some kind of a monster, like an entity? He's like, just a beast! No one ever going... But they couldn't tell the guy, like... And when they went back to tell the host or whatever, the maitre d', that this guy had stunk their car up, the same guy comes out to park their car and they're like, oh, I'm going to go back. No. Anyway. So, again, even according to your experience, even helping people is somewhat off the charts, right?
It just depends on where you are. Like, the train station is a bad example. Because
What if it's a homeless person? Can you ask homeless people anything?
No.
Can you ask them where they get drugs?
Possibly, but I
Can
wouldn't.
you ask taxi drivers where to get drugs?
Possibly.
Why is it appropriate to ask taxi drivers and homeless people where to get drugs?
Because they know where it is.
Do they? How about this? Is it okay to give homeless people money?
Yeah.
How about food? Here, what's the issue with, why is it preference? What is the argument against giving homeless
Some
people
people
money?
say that if you give like homeless people money, they just use it to buy drugs and alcohol.
And some people would defend that position and say, hey, you know what? Once I give them the money, that's their money. They decide. Some people say, you know what? Giving the food is better. And I would say, you telling me that you think a homeless person couldn't trade food for drugs?
And they could, but
Or go sell it back to wherever they got it from? Or you can't get money for food in this world? I mean, if that's the principle. I'm telling you right now, if the world ever goes crazy, all these people have gold in their safes, they're going to starve to death. Okay? And the only thing I want if the world goes crazy is a bunch of the dehydrated food or something like that. So, but anyway, I think what we're hitting on is something very fundamental here. This changes completely. How about something a little more subtle? How about coworkers versus family? How does that change? And it's a real problem if your coworkers are your family. Yes, Patrick.
You feel guilty like calling out for work?
All right, so maybe let me put it another way, Patrick. Are you more controlled around your coworkers or less? You show more of your personality. I think this is one of the elements here. In social interaction, the level of how much you show of your personality, like, you know, this is who I am, right? I think that's determined partly by the level of comfort that you feel around people, and the level of acceptableness, and how much they've seen of your personality. Because I guarantee you, almost each and every one of you hide parts of your personality from your parents. Right? I remember one time my mom first caught me like cussing. You know when you're like 14, you think it's funny every other word. I picked up the phone, I was talking to my friend on an answering machine, and it was recording. I thought I turned it off and recording, and she played it back, and it was like 20 minutes full of like, you know, 14-year-olds plotting against other people and cussing and things. So, you know, like childish plotting. Did you hear what this person? Anyway, sort of gets gossip, I guess it would be. But anyway, so maybe you feel more. So you're saying that you feel more obligation to your work, that you'd be more likely to not show up at a family event versus your work, or you feel less guilty. I don't want to back you into a corner.
That's alright. It depends on one of my bosses. because it's like when I'm like a boss, I feel bad because like he treats me like a dad. It just depends on the work field, and like at the beginning I was really reserved, but like I just start working with them, they get more demanding, and then that's when you feel like you have an obligation towards them to work more.
And I bet that as you got more comfortable with who he was, you felt better about like just maybe making jokes or saying stuff about like local or like events or like sports and things like that. Small talk. Maybe even did this person ever ask you more about your family or get like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? See, that type of stuff. And that's what we call getting to know people. And once you start doing that, what you develop is what we call working consensus, where I know your patterns, you know mine, so it's not a surprise when, you know, we go out to Buffalo Wild Wings, you get drunk and start asking out every single person in the room, because that's just the way you act. Right? Whereas if it's the first time we go out, you're going to hide that stuff. It actually reminds me of a show. There's a show on Fox called New Girl. And these two are dating. And they're sort of trying to, one of the characters is dating the other one, and the female character's got an anger management issue, but she doesn't reveal that to the end, where she beats someone up. Right? And she's like, I tried to hold it back. Right? That we hold things back about ourselves. Did somebody have something over here? Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's also, you have to take into account with that, I mean, like professionalism, you know, around the job and everything. Because, I mean, you know, some things aren't appropriate.
And the idea of professionalism is a sort of a code of conduct.
Right.
That if you violate these things, and not only is it in one industry, and it's overarching over all economic industries, but each industry and each business inside the industry has a different, like if you work at IBM, it's much different than Google. You go to IBM, you button the shirt up, put the tie on, straight hair. You go to Google, I heard you can just lounge. I mean, the desks are different. You know, like the chairs are different. The office area is more open. They like do things like on their lunch break, like ride around on unicycles and all kinds of stuff like that. That there are certain businesses that are just much different. And I'm sure you've each had a job where, and this also depends on the personality of the managers enforcing the rules. I've worked at Pizza Hut before where if one manager was there, stuff was cool. We could take food, we could relax. The other manager was there, oh my gosh. You know, it was like the fascists have returned. Are you standing around? Get a rag and start wiping things, right? Like they take their jobs way too seriously. But for them, that's their level of professionalism, right? And again, it's different. In construction work, it's different than, you know, like I worked with my dad who's a mechanic. They tell, especially when there are no women around, they tell all kinds of crazy jokes and they put up like questionable calendars and all kinds of stuff. Where you're not going to get away with that in other places. Okay? Alright. Also physical location. We're not going to belabor each one of these points because you can see each one with some of these examples. Are you in your home? Or in public? Are you in one place? Or on the sidewalk or moving around? It seems to me that the grocery store is some area where people take some kind of semi-private reality because people... I've seen grown adults act like fools in grocery store. I'm not sure why people think that that's... And kids, grocery store, home, what's the difference? Right? Throw a temper tantrum. I think some kids wait till they get to the store. I've heard parents say, every time we take him to the store, it feels fit. He's fine when he's at home. Normally that's sort of the reverse. Did you want to add something?
I feel like with the adults, the ones who do act out in grocery stores and things like that,
Yeah.
it depends on who they're with.
To some extent, so there's number one.
Yeah, if they were their friends, they
They're not gonna
tend
fool.
to be loud and more. But they by
Throw
themselves
nerve
just
ball.
shopping, they're quiet and.
Right. And in general, again, each situation that you're in, look, the grocery store is not a library, but it's also not a basketball game. So to go in there and yell and go, oh my God, peas for $4 a bit, you know, I mean, to go in there and act like boisterous and crazy and start cheering for ice cream, it's a little weird. Okay. Or start praying, thank the Lord God, there's Triscuits.
We've got cravings.
Wonder if Tim Tebow does that. Like, get up, Tim. Come on. Ain't cool to be doing that in the grocery store. Get up. Like, again, to prove I just said, imagine what would people think if you came in and you said, oh, thank you, Lord God, for this bounty. Right? People would be like, what is going on here? Here, some people's comedy depends on this type of stuff. Tom Green went into a grocery store with a cow and got underneath it and started sucking its udder.
That's disgusting.
Here's another thing. That ain't nothing compared to Jackass. Here's another thing he did. He commissioned an ice sculpture of his mom and dad having sex and put it on their lawn. I'm not kidding you. And then another thing he did, because I haven't seen the Jackass one, so maybe you can say, I know part of what this guys did. he got a regular pizza, like a cheese pizza, and he got a bunch of toppings and a tackle box, and he went around chasing other pizza delivery guys, and got there before them, and said, "Hey, we can give you this. We know you ordered a pizza from so-and-where, but we can give you another one." And people were going, "Get out of here before I call the cops." And the thing was, he's Canadian, and so he was on a work visa. And does anybody know what happens to you if you're on a work visa and you get arrested? Goodbye! And if you do something stupid enough, they won't let you back in. Okay? It's just like Canada. If you are an American and you have a drunk driving arrest, you can forget about driving through Canada. They don't want you there. And I'm not sure Canadians are too enthralled by us anyway. I think it's more like, all right, Americans, come in and leave your money. Don't start any trouble, or riots, or fights, or bring your handguns, or your crack pipes, or anything else. Okay, just calm down. All right, here's a Molson. Drink that. Anyway, I'm joking, but anyway. Number 3, social time. What day is it? What time of the day? What expectations do these elements have? Look, at 7 o'clock, most people are at work or getting ready for work, right? You shouldn't be drinking. I had a weird situation. I used to work at, here's postmodernism for you, surrealism for you. I used to work inside of a Texaco, in a Taco Bell inside of a Texaco. Yeah, it was surreal. It was bizarre because it was like one of those Russian dolls where I didn't know where it ended. Like you open the doll and there's no doll inside. Anyway, so I would get off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't sell alcohol until about 9 o'clock. So I'd wait a little bit longer, and I'd go down to the corner store, which is called Diamond Shamrock or something like that. Probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, and I would sit there, and so I'd buy and this is back when I was pretty young, and I had tried to save money, so I'd buy a 40-ounce Budweiser, and I'd put it up on the counter. So that was like 23. And everybody in the store who was getting gas and coffee to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning was going like, what the hell is this guy doing? You know? And I said, what do you want me to do? Stand up in front of the store and go, all right, everybody, just to make sure you guys are cool with what I'm doing. You don't think I'm an alcoholic. I just got off of work. Okay? I mean, you can't tell these types of things, but that's an element of that. That on Friday night, being drunk or even high is not a big deal for a lot of people. It's just something you do. It's one of the reasons why I don't go out on Friday and Saturday night. I mean, I'll tell you right now, look, the chances of you running into a drunk driver on Friday or Saturday night has got to be 10 times greater than it is on Tuesday night. I mean, think about the reality, right? You guys have all driven around on Friday and Saturday night. You see the people doing this. Or if you see the guy following you so close but he won't go around you, guess what he's doing? Or her. They're following your taillights because they can't see straight. You've never seen somebody get on your tail and they won't go around you no matter how much you slow down. That's what they're most likely doing. Okay? And then a lot of them are on coke and they're driving around even faster or meth or whatever. You know, meth drivers are dangerous. Anyway, in heroin, people with heroin usually don't go around driving. They usually don't have a car. Injected into their arm. Anyway, also number 4, purpose of the event. Is it a party? What kind of a party? Is it your dad's anniversary party? Because don't show up spiking the punch, right? Or unless your dad's like that. Right? It always comes down to, oh man, Dad's going to love this. Right? I'll put some potatoes in there. You know, or something like that. So my friend Jeff might have brought him a joint, and his dad a joint. You know, there you go, Dad, happy birthday. You know, this all has to do with sort of, earlier on in America's history, there was much more, this is the rules, and you follow the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, that's what happens, you beatnik hippies. Right? After the counterculture, it was sort of, you know what, your rules, my rules, their rules, just don't get in my way. Right? Don't bring it into my house. You know, I've heard parents say this to their kids. I don't care if you smoke weed or drink, just don't bring it around here, right? It's almost like it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Want to fight dogs? I don't want to hear about it. You know, whatever you're doing. Going down to spring break, don't take pictures. Okay? Anyway. Well, some parents follow their kids down to spring break. What's up, dude? Dad, you're not fooling anybody with that hat on. Subculture as well. Hey, the Hells Angels, a good Friday night is knocking somebody's teeth out of their throat, right? To other people, that's the worst thing they want to do. For all we know, though, Hells Angels go around delivering toys to orphanages because nobody ever sits down and bothers to talk to these guys to see what the hell they're doing. We just assume, oh, you look like this, and you must be some kind of a weirdo, right? You must be on drugs or some kind of a danger. But again, it's the element of subculture. Okay? Like, for example, let's take homosexual subculture. It's not a big deal to see other guys kissing guys in a gay bar. To a lot of people, that's frightening. Okay? And here's the thing. Is it becoming more and more acceptable to do this out in public? Like two lesbians or two gay guys kissing, holding hands? Like if you go to the Broadway Mall, is that untoward that you'll see that? That that'll never happen? I'm telling you it does. What's the rule there? Right? Is that appropriate or not for guys to kiss each other?
Taboo for a lot of people.
See, but it's not to the point where someone's going to get dragged up to jail, or everybody in the mall is going to, oh my God, did you see that? So you can see it's some of these things Americans have mixed emotions on, right? Especially if you're a gay Republican. But anyway. But there are some people that feel uncomfortable with that, but they don't want to take the additional step of making themselves to be the focal point of, it's my job to enforce this social rule, right? But like biker gangs, or like take this, X Games. I think her name was Sarah Burke. There was a young woman who was an X Games athlete. She died from injuries. Was it Sarah Burke? Is that her name? Young girl, what, 27, 28? Olympic gold medal, I think Olympic gold medalist or silver medalist, something like that. To her, to a lot of people, that'd be a horrible tragedy. To her, if you would have asked her, she'd probably taken that risk. Died trying. Or like Dale Earnhardt, NASCAR racer. He died on the track at the Daytona 500 helping his teammate and his son essentially win the race. I don't think that Dale would have liked to die getting hit by a bus when he was 82. You know? I mean, I'm sure he would have rather lived a long time, but it didn't bother him that much. Or just in general, the X Games. Have you ever seen Shaun White? Remember when who here watches the winter? By the way, it's starting on Thursday. ESPN owes me money. So if you've ever seen the Winter X Game, I encourage you to watch a little bit of this. It's on until Sunday on ESPN and ABC. These guys get on these big, gigantic ice super pipes. They're made of snow and ice. And they're like a skateboard super pipe. And they go down it and they jump up 30 feet in the air and they flip around and do all this crazy. And it makes what's so dangerous about these athletes? They make this crazy, deadly stuff look easy. And it's one thing to be a football player where someone can blindside you. It's another thing when Shaun White was practicing, he flipped up in the air. Here's the side of the half pipe. Bam! His face hit the thing like that. His helmet flew off. He had this big, gigantic mark on the side of his face. Shook it off. Got right back up there. He even watched it on the monitor. He goes, whoa, did you see that? He won the gold the next day. Most people would have been like, oh, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm never going to do this again. This is wrong. I don't want to get hurt. Right? My friend snowboards. I'm like, damn, I'm not going with you. He gets hurt all the time. My friend Craig was in Alaska. He was down on a black diamond, like a triple black diamond thing. Came off this ridge. Didn't see it. It was like a 70-foot drop. He said when I came over, he said, I knew I was in trouble. So what'd you do? He said, I flapped my wings. It didn't work, did it? He's like an ostrich. Anyway. Alright. Let's go down here a little bit. So also there's theories regarding who gets to decide what is right or wrong and what are the punishments for it. So we'll go down these pretty quickly. The state obviously makes laws and sets a tone for society behavior. Here's an issue. What happens when people like Elliot Spitzer are violating the law? Does that impact society's view of the law, or does that make people say, well, he resigned, so the law did its job? Does that make people go, why am I? Does that make people say, why am I following the laws if Elliot Spitzer's hanging out with hookers?
Yes.
That's the way it works?
Yes.
Why?
Because
So you're saying that his example is sitting, even though it's still against the law to traffic in prostitutes or whatever, pay prostitutes, that him doing it makes it seem okay.
No, it doesn't make it seem okay, but it makes you, like, I feel like lose a little bit of faith because you're like, okay, look at this.
Well, if he's doing that, other people are doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about just the role model thing?
I feel like it's the same thing. It's about power and stuff. And
Greg?
It's Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Sorry.
I don't think it affects the actual laws themselves as much as it affects the actual politician. I mean, you could take what you said and go one step further. It's not necessarily,
So you're saying it doesn't...
violating the law. It's we're electing these people to make our laws, but they're not going to follow them.
So this is more of the, you would put this more on the individual, this is Spitzer's fault, not all politicians.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it reminds me of when, remember the Motown and Melee when Ron Artest started that fight on the stands? Everybody's like, we got to do something about the NBA. There's violence everywhere. And I was like, I'm sorry, but there were probably 11,000 NBA games before this where there was absolutely no violence whatsoever. Now this is some kind of a problem? When in hockey games, there's 10 fights a game and people die from concussions? And you're worried about basketball? It's almost a sense of like disproportionate response to say, well, because, and I'm not disagreeing with your point. What I'm trying to give is a different perspective. Some people say, you know what? Maybe it's just the news media making it seem like these things are much more common. And you may be right that, hey, big deal we haven't caught all these people. Fine, we caught one Elliot Spitzer and a lot of other people haven't been caught. But what do we know what they're doing? That here's the problem. Elliot Spitzer's job is to enforce the law. If he's the one breaking the law, then who's enforcing the law? Which means all these other people like Elliot Spitzer are getting away with it. Potentially. That's one way to look at it. So anyway. Be the family. This one is, again, filled with a lot of different issues and controversies. Like, for example, you know, which family structure is right. Also, what impact does what your family teach you about what's right and wrong extend through the rest of your life? Meaning that if your parents tell you that doing this or that is wrong, or hurting somebody, or doing this, or acting this way is wrong, how much are you actually going to absorb that? And a lot of that has to do with your relationship with your parents itself, doesn't it? The more you trust them, the more you believe what they say is right. Because a lot of people have a contentious relationship with their family. I know people who haven't talked to their family in 20 years. Yeah. Anyway, I say you. I didn't put this. I don't think I put friends up there, but you can put it up there. Friends in the family you choose. Anyway, church and religion clearly not only reinforces a lot of the legal aspects of rules of deviance, but also goes over and beyond the 10 Commandments, the 7 deadly sins. A lot of people use the stuff written in Sodom and Gomorrah to say that Christianity is against homosexuality when they're. If those of you who read the Bible or going to Sunday school, did Jesus say one word about gay people? Did he?
No.
Then where are they giving them? You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they have nothing to back up their position with, but it seems kind of silly that they're sort of grasping at straws, and that maybe this is more personal opinion. Like I said, I'm not taking a position one way or the other, but it seems odd to me that the founder of your own religion has not said anything, and you're saying all these stuff that supposedly he said. And again, this is also about how do we treat people on an everyday basis, ethical behavior, should you be nice to people. You know the thing of, if someone, like in Judeo-Christian faith, or at least especially in Christianity, if someone smacks you on the face, what are you supposed to do?
Turn other cheek.
And how many people do that? You imagine if,
the argument for that is because there's 2 different testaments in the Bible.
Right, that's true, but Christians are supposed to follow the New Testament.
Yeah, but the New Testament says treat others as though you like to be treated. The Old Testament says.
No, I know that, but here's the thing. But how much you actually?
I think I can smack you back.
So what are you trying to say? You follow whatever testament you want?
No, it's just you gotta look at it as it's the time period. At that time, those rules were for that situation.
Oh, so but if you actually look at it, Jesus, when Jesus said that stuff, people were like, "You're nuts. We're not." They're like, "We're going to kill Romans," and Jesus is like, "You don't want to do that." He's like, "We're going to do it, dude."
Because the Romans then defeated.
But again, you're trying to say that, but in Jesus' time, that's when he meant that. If you listen to Christians, they all say that he meant that from now on to the end of eternity. Here's the thing, though. It's hard for nations to do this. Imagine in Pearl Harbor if we said, you know what, we'll just turn the other cheek. Japan can keep kicking our ass. Can you imagine that? On September 12th, you know what? We're not going to retaliate against bin Laden. John?
I think that it's something also because of the times changing everything is that a lot of it has to deal with how globalized the world has become, and especially.
So you're saying we can't do that because if we did, we would have a country no more.
I'm saying that way back when Jesus was around and everything, and that they were following the Bible.
Right, they have nuclear weapons and things.
That was controlling a very small set of people who leaps and bounds away
Well,
from.
again, it didn't have tanks and planes and terrorist bombs.
And now we have thousands of different religions out there today. I mean, you know, I see it after it says media and schools. I mean, like just a couple of years ago, I was a camp counselor, and they were banning dodgeball because they
Right. I remember they banned tag at some schools and people were getting pushed down.
Right.
And also they banned dodgeball not only because people getting hurt, but kids were picking on other kids.
But then
They target one kid and throw all the balls at one.
The funny thing is,
So you guys think it's funny? You guys were doing it, weren't you? No.
the funny thing is though that just a couple of years later, I mean, in between these two time periods, you have them banning dodgeball because they think that dodgeball is really violent. But I mean, just recently, a couple of months ago, like the Fox started broadcasting UFC.
Right, and not only that, look at hockey's been violent for a long, long time, and frankly, it's not getting less violent. And frankly, if you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, the fighting has ruined your team. Your team, it looks like Sydney. You're laughing at this, Jeff. You don't like the Penguins? You need a Rangers fan. But isn't that terrible? That because and fighting is not technically part of it. It's not supposed to be part of the sport. It's not like it has become that. But fighting was always somewhat secondary. That you hash out problems with it. Not now it's become a technique of the game that you start a fight when you think someone's going to score a goal or because you want to knock another player out because you want to win the game instead of you said something about me or you pushed me down when you shouldn't have. And it's getting to the point where the NHL is going to have to do it. Think about last night's Giants game. If every 5 minutes somebody started a fight. What if somebody would have started a fight and punched Eli in the face and knocked him out of the game? How do you feel about that? Right? You guys would have been cool if it was been Alex Smith, though, right? We still got 4 minutes, so give me a second. The media as well, obviously. Schools are a big part of it. Schools in a lot of people in the minds, a lot of people with balls or rules. The media, sports and entertainment, as well as the news are full of messages and themes that support or challenge ideas of right and wrong, right? And in the media, you also get a debate about, hey, should marijuana be illegal? Should gambling be legal? Economic institutions, again, we talked about that a fair amount. And then underlying all of this is cultural values that set social priorities. Very related to ideologies such as democracy and capitalism. Postmodernists, on the other hand, suggest that concepts of morality and deviance are more and more becoming individual realities. Meaning that there is such a high level of cynicism and distrust in society that the institutions that decide what is right or wrong have no credibility, and so each person or household should decide what values and laws to follow and what not to follow. This is an extreme version of the relativistic morality. And this is the concept of what I think is right. What I think is right is what fits my interpretation of the situation. Another version of this says, what serves my needs is what is right regardless of what the state and society think is right. I'm sure this is what Bernie Madoff partly thought. Hey, screw you guys. I'll show you how to make money. I don't think Frank Lucas cared about what people thought was right or wrong when he was dealing heroin. Again. Here's the problem, though, and this is the last point I think we'll make for today. What's the problem with a society where everybody is deciding like a smorgasbord or a salad bar? Oh, I'll take this law and this law, but then reject that one. Like, what if I decide I don't like speed limits and stop signs? Or worse, what if I decide, you know what, I think we should be able to punch people in public? See the problem with that? Some people suggested that if people have problems with each other at work or in the family, that they should get boxing gloves on and get in the ring. But that might solve a lot of problems. Here's the problem. If someone, you think you're right and the other person thinks you're wrong and now you beat them up, now they're mad at you for two things. Because you think they're wrong and you beat them up. I don't think that's probably a way to solve a lot of problems. But again, can anything get done in a society where people can't even agree on what's right or wrong or how to shake hands and all this other stuff? Are there any examples of societies that have broken down because there was too much diversity? Think Southeast Europe. Huh? Yugoslavia is a good example. Rome's a great example too, right? People couldn't decide what the empire was about at that point. Seriously, and the emperors weren't paying attention to any laws. Okay, let's say something funny.
I was just thinking about it.
What, Rome? Why? Because it's so goofy?
That was funny because
Why?
Because they didn't know what they were.
They didn't. I mean, this is how stupid people were. They didn't even understand that you should wash your hands before you eat. That's how dumb people were back then. People in the Middle Ages would deliver babies with cow manure all over their hands and wonder why their mother died. You And they used to think that sin caused the Black Plague.
Spitting on
And when all they needed was cats. You give me 1,000 cats, I'd have ended the plague like that. All right, everybody. I'll leave it on the plague thing.